our future because it is the key to fixing not only our social challenges, but also our economic ones. When the recession occurred, the economic collapse caused students between the ages of 16 to 29 to no longer obtain a job with a college degree. In fact, 53% of all recent graduates are either unemployed or underemployed. The sad truth is that 70% of the economy is driven by consumer spending and is fueled by people going in debt. We've created an economy based on people spending money they do not have on things they do not need. This is absolutely not a stable economy and cannot produce jobs. However, in order to obtain a job, the right skills and innovation need to be mastered. The global achievement gap is the gap between new skills all students need for careers, college, and citizenship versus what is taught and tested in our very best public and independent schools. For example, factual recall and multiple choice has nothing to do with careers. America needs to change towards an educational system based around innovation. We need to rethink education, where pencil and paper is the only tool used. Instead, we need to teach technology, since all the current jobs are centered around the use of technology, and the old jobs are being terminated. We, as a country, need to remain relevant and fast-moving. Other countries, such as China, are moving faster than America in innovation capacity. For example, China requires every college to teach entrepreneurship and creativity to its students. One of the biggest problems with American education is that it is premised around the idea of knowledge scarcity. Knowledge is exponentially expanding and is no longer a competitive strategy, since one can use technology to find any answer. All that matters is what you do with what you know. So how are we going to create jobs? The answer is simple: innovation. What is innovation? Innovation is having original ideas and insights, learning what it means to creatively problem solve, and coming up with original and novel ways to problem solve. Wagner describes the new skills all students now need for careers, life, and citizenship as the 7 survival skills. These include 1. Critical thinking and problem solving, or the ability to ask the right questions. 2. Collaboration across networks and leading by influence. 3. Agility and adaptability. 4. Initiative as an entrepreneur, or sets stretch goals that may not be achievable but shows initiative. 5. Effective oral and written communication, or thinking, analyzing, and writing with voice, passion, and perspective. 6. Assessing, accessing, and analyzing information. 7. Curiosity and imagination. All of these skills were carefully chosen to describe what is required to be an innovator through extensive research of CEOs and other important business people. The innovation generation are dreamers who have different aspirations than other generations. It is important to understand that this generation was raised in a world of information at their fingertips. Though this generation has been called the dumbest generation, Wagner believes that this is far from the truth. With technology readily available, this generation finds researching to be fun and are naturally curious. They are exposed to information instantly and at a much younger age, which can make them mature a little faster. They are impatient to make their mark on the world, though this is not a bad attribute. They care about the environment, their health, and they want to make a difference more than they want to make money. The only problem associated with the innovation generation is the leadership and the authority figures that are raising them. They are so stuck in tradition that the younger generation is not able to be heard. They may want to do things a little differently. for example, would not be happy working 20 years up the corporate ladder for a job they barely want. Though they seem impatient, they really are just big dreamers. They prefer to be hands-on with little to no busy work, and parents and teachers should shift their methods to comply. How to develop young people to become innovators. Teach kids to ask the right questions. Teach kids that it is okay to fail. Allow children to take risks and make mistakes. Be a teacher that acts differently so students can think differently. Promote play, passion, and purpose. Promote curiosity. Create the right environment. Engage with the students. Promote constant collaboration. Use technology. And create choice. Wagner stresses the importance of play, passion, and purpose on the developing innovative child. Play reinforces ethos, is a part of our human nature. It is an intrinsic motivation. Students learn in different ways, so play promotes different ways of learning. Hands-on learning is a very common way to learn, and play is a hands-on way of learning. And it makes learning fun. Passion is an intrinsic motivation. Humans have the innate desire to learn something new, to understand something difficult, and master something difficult. We need passion to become successful and to master a skill set. Passion is necessary in developing an innovative child. Purpose is necessary because developing a sense of purpose will increase passion in play. Purpose can be brought to light with the help of adults, teachers, and mentors because children need to be inspired. Once purpose is developed or found, the child will be more likely to be successful and master a skill set because he or she will feel it is his or her duty to do so. In order to make a culture of innovation, the teacher or mentor needs to promote teamwork, interdisciplinary problem solving, intrinsic drives, empowerment, and a trusting environment, taking risks, and making an environment that closely resembles that of a workplace. Teresa Amabiel's 3 elements of creativity connects motivation, expertise, creative thinking skills, and creativity all together. Her 3 elements of creativity states that one's technical, procedural, and intellectual knowing, how flexibly and imaginatively people approach problems, and how intrinsic motivation leads to creativity. We need to allow our children and students to actively be curious, ask questions, work together, and fail. Children must know that it is okay to fail in order to feel comfortable exploring new ideas. Allowing children their freedom will allow them to find themselves in the best way possible. We also need to provide unconditional support.
Chapter 4, Social Innovators. In this chapter, the author, Tony Wagner, emphasizes the difference between STEM innovators and social innovators. STEM innovators want to make things that will change the world, whereas social innovators want to make change. Therefore, they tend to be more idealistic. However, STEM and social innovators have a lot in common. They are both considered to be disruptors or transformative. meaning that they want to create new or fundamentally different products or services that disrupt existing markets and displace formerly dominant technologies such as the iPod or iPhone. But in the case of social innovators, Martin Luther King Jr. is an excellent example of a disruptor because he changed the way the world thought. In addition, much of their work can be described using two-word verbs. They question, observe, experiment, and network. They are the driving force behind the change that they wish to implement. Lastly, they all possess Wagner's three essential characteristics: play, passion, and purpose. In the next slides, I will go into more details about three individuals who are social innovators.
My name is Sarita Gates. I have a social venture called The Sweet Life, spelled SWT, which stands for Service We Trust. And basically what we do is we create conversations for young people to find out what they're passionate about and how they can be phenomenal. I love pulling from popular culture and making the negative positive. I think specifically around hip hop, you have the fame, which is cool, and then you have what you can do with the fame. So you have a lot of these artists, whether they're starting nonprofit organizations, creating various ways to give back. You're successful in my eyes. You've been able to leave a legacy that's gonna be here after you're gone. My community definitely puts the battery in my back to reimagine what success is.
I go down to her house, and I'm expecting just to get chewed out by like this 50-year-old lady who's just going to tell me about how all these awful things I did. And she brings me inside, and she starts telling me about sea turtles. And she's not yelling at me. She's just like educating me about these endangered animals. What I was doing with those fireworks was impeding a creature that has been around the Earth for 65 million years, and that they're integral parts of the coral systems that they inhabit when they're feeding. And I don't know what happened, just like something all of a sudden snapped. I had never cared about something. And all of a sudden I was asking her like, well, what can I do? Like, what can I do to help protect these sea turtles? And she started telling me, she's like, well, there's not many youths doing anything to protect these sea turtles. And after that day, there wasn't a day that went by where I didn't think about these animals. And over the next 10 years, her name is Linda Soderquist, the old lady. She's going to kill me for calling her that like 4 times in this presentation. We worked 10 years to try and protect these animals together. She had been doing it for a very long time. And what I did was I started doing school presentations because that's what I knew how to do. I started talking to kids about why it was important to protect these animals that I cared so deeply for. And I created this activity book that you see here. And we got it printed in a couple of languages, and she did all the illustrations for it, and it was going really well. To date, in the last decade, we've got 250,000 copies of the book in 5 different languages in 20 countries. And it's going really well. It's the biggest publication about sea turtles in the world. And scenes like this absolutely kill me. And this is the reason I go out there and try and make change. This happens, I think, with everybody who goes out there and finds a passion. There's this one moment when all of a sudden things change.
In Chapter 5, Innovating Learning, Wagner poses 2 questions. How do we change the system to make it more innovative? And where do we start? He starts by listing some of the problems he has found with our system of education. 1. There are few opportunities to discover things on your own. 2. We learn facts but not the ideas behind them. 3. We are taught to pass tests, but we lack the skills other than memorization. And 4, colleges don't actually prepare students for the skills that are needed in today's job market. In summation, what you know is far less important than what you can do with what you know. I'll be going into more detail about the ideas listed in the following slides.
I define creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. Divergent thinking isn't a synonym, but it's an essential capacity for creativity. It's the ability to see lots of possible answers to a question, lots of possible ways of interpreting a question, to think what Edward de Bono would probably call laterally, to think not just in linear or convergent ways. to see multiple answers, not one. So, there are tests for this. One kind of cod example would be people might be asked to say, how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? One of those routine questions. Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come up with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall and be made out of foam rubber? Does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? Now, there are tests for this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now, you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children. So what do you think? What percentage at genius level? 80. 80, okay. 98%. Now, the thing about this was it was a longitudinal study. So they retested the same children 5 years later, ages of 8 to 10. What do you think? 50? They retested them again 5 years later, ages 13 to 15. You can see a trend here, can't you? Now, this tells an interesting story, because you could have imagined it going the other way, couldn't you? You start off not being very good, but you get better as you get older. But this shows two things. One is we all have this capacity, and two, it mostly deteriorates. Now, a lot of things have happened to these kids as they've grown up. A lot. But one of the most important things that happened to them, I'm convinced, is that by now they've become educated. They've spent 10 years at school being told there's one answer, it's at the back. And don't look. And don't copy, because that's cheating. Outside schools, that's called collaboration, but inside schools. Now, this isn't because teachers want it this way, it's just because it happens that way. It's because it's in the gene pool of education.
The author's opinion. Based on just the title of this book, Creating Innovators, Tony Wagner is an advocate for educational reforms. He strongly opposes the U.S. educational system, suggesting that test-focused education is deeply flawed and that federally generated educational initiatives such as Obama's Race to the Top are actually a race to mediocrity. Rather, he believes that education for innovation must be constructed consciously and needs to cultivate the capabilities for collaboration, multidisciplinary inquiry, trial and error, and the creation of new ideas, products, and services. It must also incorporate the intrinsic motivations of play, passion, and purpose. He also argues that students need a 21st century education in order to be prepared for the jobs of the future, but the biggest challenge we face in this is that it is difficult to teach our students to think in ways that we were not taught ourselves.
Wagner believes that the key to becoming successful is by becoming an innovator. It is necessary to provide someone with a sense of purpose in order to find their passion. Knowledge is not important unless you are truly interested in it. Wagner's play, passion, purpose model is a developmental process that focuses on intrinsic motivation. It is important to not be afraid to fail. It is important to go out with what you know and know how to apply it to situations that interest you. This book illustrates how we should educate and raise students to become innovators. Wagner describes how he believes education needs to shift to support his play, passion, and purpose model in order to promote the development of innovators.